While Palpatine schemed in the shadows with his new multiversal allies, the Vandukes were already on the move, taking their own steps toward unraveling the Sith's influence. In a quiet chamber deep within the Jedi Temple, Street Rat stood with Plo Koon and Kit Fisto, the other two Vandukes, the Orphan and Fallout Boy, flanking him. The atmosphere was tense but filled with purpose. Street Rat had just finished explaining to Plo Koon how he had felt Sidious's dark presence trying to invade his mind during his meeting with the Chancellor. The invasion had been subtle, but Street Rat had recognized it for what it was: a test, a probing attempt by a powerful enemy. Street Rat had managed to push Sidious out, but now he had a sinking suspicion that Sidious was hiding somewhere within the Republic government, likely in the Senate. "I can't shake it," Street Rat said, his eyes narrowing as he spoke to Plo and Kit. "I felt Sidious try to get into my mind, and I know he's hiding in plain sight. I've been around enough corrupt leaders to know one when I see them. The Senate, there's something off about it. I'm betting he's there, pulling the strings from within. But we need proof." Plo Koon nodded thoughtfully, his voice steady and calm. "If Sidious is truly hiding within the Republic, then we must tread carefully. We cannot act on suspicion alone. But if you are right, Street Rat, we will need more than just an idea. We will need solid proof before we can move against him." Kit Fisto, standing with his arms crossed, gave a firm nod. "We can't alert Sidious to the fact that we're onto him, not yet. But we have another target in sight, Count Dooku. If we can capture him, perhaps we can find the connection we need to expose Sidious." The Orphan, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward, his expression grim. "Dooku's not going to come quietly. If we're going after him, we need to be prepared for a fight. He's strong, and he's got the Separatists at his back." Fallout Boy, ever the pragmatist, added, "I've seen my share of warlords. Dooku's not gonna give us what we need unless we force his hand. We've got to be ready for anything." Plo Koon, ever methodical, turned to Kit Fisto. "We'll need more than just ourselves. We'll need our clone detachments, fully prepared for combat. Dooku is elusive, but if we strike quickly and decisively, we can corner him before he escapes." Kit Fisto nodded, already making plans. "I'll contact my detachment. They'll be ready within the hour. We'll also need to secure transport, something fast and stealthy. Dooku's no fool, and he'll be expecting resistance." Street Rat folded his arms, his mind already racing ahead. "The key is speed. If we hit him fast, we can cut off his escape routes and force him into a corner. Once we have him, we can use his connection to Sidious to figure out what's really going on." Plo Koon placed a reassuring hand on Street Rat's shoulder. "Your instincts have brought us this far, Vanduke. Now, we must trust in them as we prepare for what comes next." As Plo Koon and Kit Fisto stepped aside to coordinate with their clones, The three Vandukes exchanged a glance. They had faced powerful enemies before, but this galaxy posed new challenges they couldn't afford to underestimate. Yet, for all the darkness looming ahead, they knew that together, with the Jedi at their side, they had a fighting chance. Within the hour, both Plo Koon's and Kit Fisto's clone detachments had assembled. The clones, disciplined and battle-ready, moved with precision as they prepared for the mission. The air buzzed with the anticipation of the coming battle, but everyone knew the stakes were higher than just capturing a separatist leader. This mission could unravel the truth behind Sidious and his grip on the galaxy. As the clones readied their gear and loaded into the transports, Street Rat, the Orphan, and Fallout Boy joined Plo Koon and Kit Fisto near the landing pads. "This is it," Street Rat said quietly. "If we take down Dooku, we're one step closer to taking down Sidious." Kit Fisto smiled, his sharp teeth flashing briefly. "Then let's not waste any more time." The mission was set. The Vandukes, alongside Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, and their clone forces, were about to embark on a mission that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But unknown to them, as they prepared for this mission, dark forces were already moving against them. Sidious, the imposter, and the false storyteller had their own plans, and the galaxy was about to be thrown into even greater chaos. As the Venator-class Star Destroyer dropped out of hyperspace, Street Rat, the Orphan, Fallout Boy, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, and their clone commanders were stunned by the sight before them. Count Dooku's flagship, accompanied by an overwhelming number of separatist cruisers, floated ominously in the distance, already positioned as though they had been expecting this exact moment. "Looks like Dooku got the memo," Fallout Boy muttered, eyeing the vast fleet. Plo Koon's expression remained calm, but his voice carried a note of tension. "It seems Sidious warned him. We should have anticipated this." Kit Fisto, ever optimistic but pragmatic, stepped forward. "We're outgunned, but let's see if we can maneuver before they open fire. Keep shields up and prepare evasive maneuvers." Before a battle could begin, the comm station chirped to life. A communication request from Dooku himself. The bridge crew hesitated for a moment, exchanging glances, but Plo Koon nodded. "Open the channel." The hologram flickered to life, revealing the tall and imposing figure of Count Dooku, his presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone on the bridge. His sharp eyes moved over the group: Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, the clone commanders, and finally, settling on the three Vandukes. Dooku's expression was calm, but there was an air of calculation about him. "Ah, the Vandukes," he said smoothly, his voice deep and measured. "I have heard much about you from my master, Sidious. Quite the fascinating individuals, traveling across timelines and realities. It seems you are now as deeply entangled in this war as the rest of us." The Vandukes remained silent for a moment, unsure of where this conversation was heading. but before they could respond, Dooku's expression changed, softening ever so slightly. His next words took everyone by surprise. However, Dooku continued, "I am not contacting you to engage in yet another senseless battle. No, I am here to offer cooperation. You see, I have grave concerns about my master and, more specifically, about the allies he has recently acquired." Street Rat exchanged a glance with Plo-kun, both of them wary of Dooku's sudden shift in tone. The orphan, always suspicious, stepped forward, folding his arms. "What kind of cooperation are we talking about, Dooku? You expect us to trust you after everything?" Dooku raised a hand, as though acknowledging their skepticism. "I understand your reluctance. But hear me out. My master, Darth Sidious, is no fool. He has always played both sides of this war, carefully orchestrating each conflict to serve his own designs. Yet recently, he has made a move that has unsettled even me. He has brought new allies into the fold, beings of immense power, from beyond this galaxy." The Vandukes stiffened. They knew exactly who Dooku was talking about. Dooku's gaze sharpened, and he focused on the Vandukes specifically. "You know them, don't you? The impostor and the false storyteller. Two creatures of chaos, with the ability to manipulate reality itself. They have entered this galaxy, and my master has already begun working with them. I fear they may be the downfall not only of the Republic, but of the Confederacy as well. If these two are allowed to wreak havoc unchecked, everything we know this galaxy, our factions, our very reality could be torn apart." Plo-kun remained calm, but there was clear concern in his voice. "And why should we believe you, Dooku? You are Sidious' apprentice. What makes you think we would cooperate with you?" Dooku's expression darkened. "Because I am not blind, Master Kun. Sidious is not invincible. His ambitions stretch far beyond the Sis or the Republic, and now that he has aligned himself with these multiversal threats, he is no longer playing by the rules of this galaxy. If the impostor and the false storyteller gain full control of their powers here, they could reshape reality in ways none of us can predict or control. My master believes he can use them, but I am not so certain. And neither should you be." Street Rat stepped forward, narrowing his eyes at Dooku. "You're scared. You're scared Sidious is going to let these two destroy everything including you." Dooku didn't deny it. "I am pragmatic, Vanjuk. I know power when I see it. But this is beyond any one man's control. If we do not work together to stop them, it will not matter who wins this war. The galaxy will be thrown into chaos." The orphan's voice cut through the silence. "You're saying we team up? But once we deal with Sidious and these two, what happens? You go back to leading the separatists? We go back to fighting?" Dooku's expression remained neutral, but his eyes gleamed with understanding. "Once Sidious is dealt with, We will see. But for now, our goal is mutual. I want to survive, as do you. Kid Fisto, ever cautious but sensing the potential in Dooku's words, turned to Plo-kun. This could be the break we need. If Dooku knows more about Sidious' plans, it might be worth the risk. Plo-kun was silent for a moment, then turned to the Vandukes. What do you think? This is your fight as much as ours now. If Dooku's information is true, this could be our chance to stop Sidious before it's too late. Street Rat considered the situation, glancing at the orphan and Fallout Boy. They had faced impossible odds before, but this galaxy was different, more dangerous, more fragile. The imposter and the false storyteller weren't just threats to the Jedi or the Republic. They were threats to the very fabric of reality. We work with Dooku, Street Rat finally said, his voice firm. But only until we have the proof we need. Once Sidious is out of the way, Dooku's next. Dooku smiled faintly. Agreed. For now, we have a common enemy. Let us focus on that. With that, the communication cut off, leaving the group in tense silence. They had made an uneasy alliance with one of their greatest enemies. But in the face of the larger threat posed by Sidious, the imposter, and the false storyteller, it was the only option they had. Now, they prepared for what was to come, a battle not just for control of the galaxy, but for the very nature of reality itself. After the tense communication with Count Dooku ended, the room was filled with silence as the Vandukes, Plo-kun, Kit Fisto, and the two clone commanders processed the weight of what had just been revealed. The Separatist leaders' unexpected cooperation had rattled them all, but the Vandukes had been keeping a secret of their own, one that now needed to be shared. Street Rat exchanged a glance with the orphan and Fallout Boy before stepping forward, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but the gravity of what he was about to say was unmistakable. Kid, there's something you need to know. Something we haven't told anyone yet. Plo-kun turned to face Street Rat, his calm demeanor still intact, though a flicker of curiosity and concern passed through his eyes. Kit Fisto crossed his arms, waiting for Vanduke to continue. We know who Sidious is, Street Rat said, his words cutting through the tension in the air like a blade. It's Palpatine. Both Jedi Masters froze, their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock. Plo-kun, normally so composed, took a half step back, processing the revelation. Kit Fisto's eyes widened, his calm exterior cracking as the weight of Street Rat's words sank in. Chancellor Palpatine. Sidious. Plo-kun finally asked, his voice low, but filled with disbelief. Street Rat nodded, his eyes hard. It's him. I felt him try to invade my mind back when we first arrived on Coruscant. He was subtle, but I knew it was him. And everything Dooku said just now confirms it. Sidious is pulling the strings from the shadows, and he's been right under your noses the whole time. Kit Fisto's face hardened, his usual optimistic demeanor replaced by a cold realization. If Palpatine is Sidious, then everything makes sense. The manipulation of both sides, the war, the secrecy, he's been orchestrating it all. The orphan stepped forward, his voice grim. He's played you all. The Republic and the Separatists. It's all been a ploy to gain power, and now, with the imposter and false storyteller in the mix, he's about to escalate things to a level that could destroy everything. Plo Koon remained quiet, his mind racing. His connection to the Force had always guided him, but this revelation, if true, would change everything about how they approached the war. This is troubling news. But without proof, we cannot act against him. The Jedi Council would never move against the Chancellor based on suspicion alone. Street Rat clenched his fists. That's why we need Dooku. If we can capture him, we can use his knowledge to expose Sidious once and for all. But until then, Palpatine remains untouchable. Kit Fisto nodded in agreement. We can't confront him directly, not yet. But Dooku may hold the key to bringing Sidious down. Plo Koon placed a hand on his chin, deep in thought. Then we proceed with the mission. We capture Dooku, and through him, we find the proof we need. But we must tread carefully. Palpatine will know we're closing in, and he won't hesitate to act if he feels threatened. Street Rat, the orphan, and Fallout Boy exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They had faced countless threats across the multiverse, but this was different. This was a fight not just for one galaxy, but for the very fabric of reality itself. We'll do whatever it takes, Street Rat said firmly. Palpatine's not just another villain, he's playing with powers he can't control. And if we don't stop him, everything could fall apart. With their mission clear, the group prepared to confront Count Dooku and unravel the dark web Sidious had woven around the galaxy. Time was running out, and the Vandukes, along with Plo Koon and Kit Fisto, would have to act fast before Palpatine made his next move. As they prepared for the mission, Vanduk's curiosity about the clone army grew. He had noticed the efficiency and discipline of the clones, but something about them felt off. He turned to Plo Koon and Kit Fisto, seeking answers. Can you give me a recap of the history of the clone army? Vanduk asked, his voice steady but inquisitive. Where did they come from, and how did all of this start? Plo Koon and Kit Fisto exchanged a brief glance before Plo began to explain. The clone army was ordered in secret many years ago by a Jedi Master named Sifo-Dyas. Sifo-Dyas foresaw a great conflict coming to the galaxy and believed that the Republic would need an army to defend itself. Without the approval of the Jedi Council, he went to Kamino, a distant world known for its cloning technology, and commissioned the creation of the clone army. Kit Fisto picked up the explanation. Sifo-Dyas was a visionary, but his actions were controversial. The Council was unaware of the Army's existence until the outbreak of the Clone Wars. The clones themselves were created using the genetic template of a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, one of the most skilled warriors in the galaxy. His DNA provided the foundation for the entire army. Plo continued, the clones were engineered to age rapidly, to be loyal, disciplined, and obedient to the Republic. They were trained from birth to be soldiers, and each one has been conditioned to follow orders without question. Vanjik listened carefully, nodding as they spoke, but something still nagged at him. Have there been any incidents? I mean, these clones, they're still human, right? Kit and Plo exchanged another glance, and Kit Fisto's expression turned serious. There was one incident. A clone trooper named Fives went rogue. He claimed to have discovered something wrong with him. He said he faced a malfunction and tried to tell the Jedi and the Republic about it. Unfortunately, Fives was killed before we could fully understand what he meant. His claims were dismissed as madness. Vanjik frowned, processing the information. A human doesn't just malfunction. Something must have caused it. Is there any way to know for sure? Plo nodded slowly. Fives' case was strange. He was adamant that there was something inside him, but without evidence, we couldn't act on it. Why do you ask? Vanjik's eyes narrowed as a thought occurred to him. If there's something wrong with the clones, maybe we can figure it out. I have a call sign that can scan for anomalies, might pick up something that others can't see. Would it be alright if I scanned a few of the clones? Plo considered Vanjik's request for a moment, then gave a nod of approval. I trust you, Vanjik. If you believe you can find something that might explain what happened to Fives, then by all means. Kit Fisto agreed. If there is something hidden within the clones, it's better to know now than later. With permission granted, Vanjik stepped toward a group of clone troopers standing nearby. He activated his call sign, the device glowing softly as it began scanning the nearest clone. The orphan and Fallout Boy joined him, each of them scanning different clones. Within moments, the call signs picked up something, anomalies embedded deep within the clone's neural pathways. Vanjik's eyes widened as the data appeared on his screen. Inhibitor chips, he muttered, his voice tense. Each one of these clones has an implanted chip that's designed to control them. And it's not just any chip. These are programmed with orders. The orphan stepped closer, looking over Vanjik's shoulder at the data. There's more. Executive orders, 105 of them. Some of them are basic commands, but others, these are kill orders. Whoever programmed these chips has the ability to control the clones with a single command. Fallout Boy's voice was grim as he added, that's why Fives went rogue. He must have found out about the chip and tried to warn everyone before he was silenced. Plo and Kit Fisto listened in stunned silence. The revelation of the inhibitor chips was a chilling one, and the implications were far-reaching. So, these chips. Kit Fisto began, trying to make sense of it all. They could be used to turn the clones against the Jedi. Against the Republic. Vanjik nodded gravely. That's exactly what they're for. These clones, they've been designed with built-in fail-safes. Whoever controls the chips controls them. This is how Sidious plans to destroy everything. Plo Koon's voice was cold with realization. We must inform the Council. If these chips are activated, it could mean the end of the Jedi Order. We need to act before it's too late. The Vanjikis stood silently for a moment, understanding the gravity of what they had uncovered. The clones, once seen as allies, were now ticking time bombs, tools in Sidious' grand plan. We'll figure this out, Street Rat said, determination in his voice. We're not letting Sidious win. Not this time. With that, they turned their attention back to the mission. Capturing Dooku was still the priority, but now, with this new information, the stakes were even higher. The clock was ticking, and they needed to stop Sidious before his plan came to fruition. Plo Koon and Kit Fisto exchanged a tense glance, the weight of the discovery pressing down on them like a storm on the horizon. The inhibitor chips embedded within the clones represented a catastrophic threat, one that could bring the Jedi Order to its knees if activated. There was no time to lose. They needed to warn the Jedi, but they had to do so without alerting anyone else, especially the clones. Plo Koon acted quickly, his calm yet urgent demeanor guiding him. He pulled out his personal communicator and switched to the secure Jedi-only frequency. His voice, though steady, carried the unmistakable gravity of the situation. Attention, all Jedi, Plo said quietly, keeping his tone low but firm. This is Plo Koon, broadcasting on Jedi comms. We have uncovered a serious threat embedded within the clone troopers. Inhibitor chips have been discovered inside their neural pathways, designed to control them at a moment's notice. These chips contain executive orders, including potential kill commands against the Jedi. This information must be kept confidential. Do not share with the clones or the Republic military. We will inform the Council at once. Kit Fisto quickly added to the transmission, his voice carrying the same urgency. Jedi comrades, until further notice, exercise extreme caution around all clone troopers. We cannot confirm when or if these chips will be activated, but the threat is real. Stay alert and maintain secure channels. May the Force be with us all. They sent the transmission, the secure Jedi-only frequency, ensuring that the clones and Republic officials would not intercept the message. Only Jedi in the field and within the temple would receive the warning. Plo Koon turned to Street Rat, the orphan, and Fallout Boy, his expression serious but resolute. This stays between us and the Jedi. We cannot risk alerting anyone else until we have a plan in place. If these chips are triggered, we need to be prepared for the worst. Kit Fisto nodded in agreement, his usually cheerful demeanor replaced with a grim determination. We'll need to move quickly. Dooku may be our only chance to get ahead of Sidious' plan. Let's focus on capturing him, and with that, we may find the key to stopping this. The Vandukes nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The race against time had become even more urgent, and now, not only were they fighting Sidious, but they also had to watch their backs around the very clones they had trusted. But as they worked alongside the Jedi to figure out their next move, a spark of inspiration ignited within Street Rat's mind. He had been thinking about the nature of this timeline, how their presence had already shifted events from the original course. That meant, technically, this wasn't the same timeline the Jedi were familiar with. In a way, it was a new branch of reality. And then the idea hit him. What if, Street Rat began, turning to the orphan and Fallout Boy, we could call for help from the future of this galaxy. From the original timeline. The orphan and Fallout Boy exchanged a glance, already catching on to what Street Rat was suggesting. If this timeline was different due to their presence, they could, theoretically, use their call sign to connect with the future, possibly bringing in people who had experienced the full scope of Sidious' rise to power. Street Rat continued, now addressing the Jedi Masters present. We know Sidious has been manipulating events for a long time, but in the original timeline of this galaxy, things played out without us here. There are people Jedi, maybe even others who know how this war ends, who know Sidious' full plan. If we can use the call sign to connect with the future, maybe we can call for help from those who have lived through it. Plo Koon considered the idea for a moment. This galaxy's future. It's a dangerous idea, but it could provide us with the insight we need. If we can bring help from a future where Sidious is exposed, we may stand a better chance. Kit Fisto nodded. If this works, we could learn from those who faced Sidious and survived. They would know his weaknesses, his strategies. We'd be fighting with knowledge the current Jedi don't have. Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the others listened closely, each one processing the enormity of what the Vandukes were proposing. Yoda's expression was deep with thought. Risky, this is. But great wisdom, there may be, in those who have faced Sidious before. Help us, they can. Mace Windu, ever cautious, added, if we can pull this off, we need to be prepared for what comes through. If Sidious has truly corrupted the future, we could be opening ourselves to more than just allies. Street Rat nodded, already moving to take action. We won't know unless we try. Let's get back to the temple and use the portal. We'll need all of you with us to send out a message strong enough to get through time. With urgency, the group raced back to the Jedi Temple, the journey through hyperspace feeling both rapid and endless as their plan came together. Once they arrived, the Vandukes wasted no time heading for the portal chamber deep within the temple, where they had initially reconnected with the multiverse. The room hummed with latent energy as the portal crackled with potential. The Jedi Masters Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and Yoda stood alongside the Vandukes, their expressions a mix of hope and cautious anticipation. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and now, they were about to reach across time itself for help. Street Rat activated the call sign, connecting it to the portal. He began broadcasting a message, sending it across the timeline, hoping it would reach those who knew Sidious better than anyone else. "This is Johnny Vanduke, also known as Street Rat, broadcasting to the future. We are in the middle of the Clone Wars, and we know who Sidious is. He's Chancellor Palpatine. We're calling for help from those who have lived through this war and know how it ends. If you can hear this message, we need your knowledge, your experience. The fate of the galaxy depends on it." The portal flared with energy, glowing brighter as the message was sent out across time. The room fell into silence as everyone stood in tense anticipation, waiting for a response. Street Rat, the orphan, and Fallout Boy exchanged glances, each of them feeling the weight of what they had just done. The Jedi stood with them, their gazes fixed on the portal as the seconds ticked by. And then, they waited. The room was filled with tense silence as the portal crackled to life, the faint hum of energy signaling that something or someone was about to come through. Then, they heard it, the unmistakable sound of mechanical breathing, deep and rhythmic, sending a chill down the spines of everyone present. A figure appeared in the swirling energy of the portal, cloaked in shadow, his silhouette imposing. The dark outfit and the breathing indicated some form of machinery was part of his being. His voice, robotic yet human, boomed through the chamber. "Why should I trust you?" Before anyone could respond, Anakin stepped forward, past the Vandukes and the Jedi Masters. His tone, more desperate than anyone had heard before, cut through the tension. "Please, the whole galaxy is in danger. Please, we need help." There was a pause, and the figure's breathing seemed to deepen as he took in the sight before him. He muttered, his voice full of disbelief, "It can't be possible." Then, with deliberate steps, the figure emerged fully from the portal. The Jedi recognized the aura of darkness around him immediately. This was a Sith Lord. Yet, unlike any Sith they had encountered before, he didn't seem immediately hostile. In fact, there was an air of confusion, perhaps even hesitation, about him. His gaze scanned the room, lingering on the familiar faces of Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. "Ahsoka. Obi-Wan, is that truly you?" The shock among the Jedi was palpable. Ahsoka, who had stood silently up to this point, took a step back, her eyes wide in disbelief. Obi-Wan, always calm under pressure, frowned, sensing something deeply unsettling about this figure. This Sith wasn't an enemy they knew, and yet there was something familiar about him. Kit Fisto, always quick to react, asked cautiously, "Who are you?" The figure straightened, the sound of his mechanical breath filling the air. "I am Darth Vader." He hesitated, glancing around at the room and the familiar faces before continuing. "But if this is the point in time, I think it is." He slowly turned his gaze toward Anakin. "Palpatine will betray you." The room froze as the words hung in the air. The shock on Anakin's face was immediate, his body stiffening as the figure this Darth Vader continued. "He will be the reason Padme dies." A stunned silence followed, with everyone, from the Jedi Masters to the Vandukes, realizing the truth. This was not just any Sith Lord. This was Anakin Skywalker, or, rather, a future version of him. A version consumed by the dark side, yet standing before them now, seemingly torn between the darkness and the memories of the Jedi he once was. Anakin's voice trembled as he stepped closer to the figure. Who are you really?" Vader looked at him, the mechanical breathing heavy, as if he was struggling to confront his own past self. "I am what you will become if you allow Palpatine to manipulate you. If you fall into his trap." The gravity of the situation crashed down on the group. They weren't just dealing with the present threat of Sidious, the imposter, or the false storyteller. They were now facing the potential future of one of their own, a future where Anakin, the chosen one, would fall to the dark side. The Jedi, the Vandukes, and even Vader stood in a moment of surreal understanding. The galaxy's fate, and perhaps even the multiverse, was more precarious than ever. And now, with this dark future standing in front of them, the question loomed: could they change the fate of Anakin Skywalker and, in turn, the entire galaxy? And so they waited, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on them. As the tension in the room thickened, the portal rippled again, and a new figure stepped through. This one was older, his hair and beard white with age, yet his presence carried a familiar sense of calm and wisdom. He wore the robes of a Jedi, and though his face was weathered, there was no mistaking who he was. "I am Old Ben," the man said, offering a small, knowing smile to the group. Then, with a nod to Obi-Wan, he added, "Or, rather, I was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And what Lord Vader says is true." The younger Obi-Wan's eyes widened as he took in the sight of his future self. There was an unspoken connection between them, a recognition of the paths they both walked, though one was yet to face the trials of the future. "As hard as it is to believe," Old Ben continued, "Palpatine, Sidious, he will betray the Republic and the Jedi. And he will turn the Chosen One against everything we hold dear." Before the group could fully absorb this, the portal rippled once more, and a new figure appeared, a smaller, yet deeply powerful presence. A future version of Yoda stepped through, his eyes gleaming with the wisdom of many more years than even the current Yoda possessed. "True, these words are," future Yoda said, his voice carrying the weight of his centuries of experience. "Dangerous, the future is. Seen it, I have. If stopped, Palpatine is not, darkness will consume all. The current Yoda, standing silently in the room, met his future self's gaze. There was an understanding between them, one that transcended time itself. The situation was dire, and now there was no doubt Palpatine's betrayal, the fall of Anakin, and the destruction of the Jedi were not just possibilities. They were inevitabilities unless the present could be changed. The group present and future stood together, united by the knowledge that Sidious had to be stopped. Anakin, who had been silent since Vader's revelation, looked between the two Obi-Wans, the two Yodas, and finally back at Vader, the version of himself he could one day become. The weight of the future pressed down on him. Just as the weight of the revelation seemed almost too much to bear, the portal shimmered once again. A new presence stepped through, and the air in the room seemed to shift. The figure was younger than the others, yet there was a quiet strength about him, a confidence born from experience, from trials that had shaped him into something greater than any one individual. This was not just a Jedi. The man stepped forward, his features strikingly familiar. His blue eyes, full of determination and resolve, swept over the room. His lightsaber hung at his side, but his demeanor was calm, peaceful even. He looked around, taking in the sight of the Jedi of the past: Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then the Vandukes, before he finally spoke. "I am Luke Skywalker," he said, his voice carrying the weight of both his lineage and the legacy he carried. An audible gasp rippled through the room, especially from Anakin and Obi-Wan. The name Skywalker was unmistakable, but it came from someone they had never met, a Jedi from a future they hadn't imagined. Luke stood tall, yet there was a sense of humility in his presence, the kind of strength that came not just from power but from understanding. Vader, who had been standing silently, watching the group, turned his gaze toward Luke. For a moment, there was a flicker of something deeper in Vader's mechanical breathing, something personal. The dark figure of Darth Vader seemed to soften in that instant, as if the presence of Luke awakened something long dormant inside of him. Anakin, still trying to process everything, took a hesitant step forward. "Luke Skywalker, are you my son?" Luke met Anakin's gaze, the future and the present colliding in that one glance. "Yes," he said softly. "I am your son. In my time, I brought balance to the Force, and I fought to redeem you." The room fell into stunned silence. Anakin's eyes widened as he grappled with the realization that the boy standing before him, this powerful Jedi from the future, was his own flesh and blood, someone he hadn't even known existed. The path of the future, full of darkness and redemption, now stood before him. Obi-Wan, both the present version and old Ben, watched the exchange with quiet awe. Yoda, standing beside his future self, nodded slowly, understanding the magnitude of what was happening. Luke Skywalker was the hero of that future, a Jedi who had risen from the ashes of a broken galaxy to restore hope, to bring balance where it had been lost. The future is not set, Luke said, his voice firm but full of hope. Sidious may have a plan, but it can be stopped. I'm here because I know there's a chance to change things, to prevent the suffering and loss that I witnessed. The Vandukes, silent until now, exchanged glances. Luke's presence wasn't just a message of warning, it was a sign. A sign that, even though the galaxy seemed to be on the brink of destruction, there was still hope. There was still time to change the course of history. Anakin, shaken but resolute, looked back at Luke. I don't know what to say. Luke stepped forward, placing a hand on Anakin's shoulder. You don't have to say anything. But remember this, you still have a choice. You always have a choice. And with that, the Jedi from the future, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Old Ben, and Yoda, stood together with the Jedi of the past and the Vandukes, united in their knowledge and their mission. The battle against Sidious had taken on a new dimension, and now, with the knowledge of the future, they were ready to face whatever came next. For the first time in a long while, hope flickered in the hearts of the Jedi and their allies. They knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but now, they were armed not only with the power of the Force but with the strength of those who had seen the future and returned to fight for a better one. And as the group stood together, they knew this was the beginning of the end for Darth Sidious. The air in the Chancellor's office was thick with tension as the Vandukes, the Jedi, and their allies from the future stormed through the doors. They had expected to find Sidious alone, but the reality they faced was far more dire. Standing at Palpatine's side were some of the deadliest foes they could have imagined. The false storyteller, with his eerie ability to rewrite parts of reality, stood beside the twisted form of the impostor, whose mechanical body loomed menacingly. On the opposite side, General Grievous, towering and brimming with mechanical rage, stood ready with his 4 ignited lightsabers, a sneer on his metallic face. Asajj Ventress, her eyes gleaming with dark intent, gripped her red lightsabers, eager for blood. And there, in the shadows, was Darth Maul, his double-bladed weapon spinning to life, his gaze filled with malice. Behind them, an elite squad of commando clones stood shoulder to shoulder with battle droids, ready for whatever came next. And at the center of it all, sitting calmly in his chair, was the Sith Lord, Darth Sidious Chancellor Palpatine. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he surveyed the heroes who had come to face him. His twisted smile grew as he stood to greet them. So, the moment has finally come, Sidious hissed, his voice dripping with dark pleasure. You've come to stop me, but I have been expecting you. Street Rat, the Orphan, and Fallout Boy exchanged a glance before stepping forward, their hands already on their weapons. Street Rat's voice cut through the heavy silence. We know everything, Sidious. Your plans, your true identity, and your allies. This ends now. Sidious chuckled darkly, his voice rumbling through the room. But you see, you are too late. Even with your knowledge of the future, You cannot stop what is about to unfold. My new allies, the false storyteller and the impostor, have given me access to powers far beyond anything the Jedi can comprehend. And with them at my side, nothing will stand in my way. Mace Windu's lightsaber ignited, the purple glow casting long shadows across the room. You're finished, Palpatine. The Republic will not fall to your schemes. Beside him, Luke Skywalker activated his own green lightsaber, standing alongside his father Vader, who held his iconic red blade. Old Ben and Yoda from the future ignited their weapons as well, the soft hum of lightsabers filling the room as the Jedi prepared for battle. But Sidious remained calm, his dark aura swirling around him as he spread his arms wide. "We shall see," he said with a malevolent grin, before giving a subtle nod to his assembled allies. Without warning, the battle erupted. Grievous lunged forward with terrifying speed, his four lightsabers spinning like a deadly whirlwind as he aimed for the Vandukes and Jedi. Ventress and Maul moved in perfect synchronization, their lightsabers weaving through the air as they clashed with the Jedi Masters. The false storyteller, standing beside the impostor, began to twist reality around them, warping the space itself as the Vandukes could feel time and events bending under his influence. Street Rat, already anticipating the chaos, drew his magnum and fired rapidly at the impostor, the bullets enhanced with multiversal energy. The Orphan and Fallout Boy charged forward, targeting the false storyteller with everything they had, knowing that his reality-warping powers posed the greatest threat. Plo Koon and Kit Fisto engaged with the commando clones and battle droids, their lightsabers flashing through the air as they deflected blaster fire. Meanwhile, Yoda and Old Ben leapt into action, facing Ventress and Maul in a furious clash of lightsabers. Anakin, caught between his future self, Darth Vader, and the chaos of the battle, found himself face to face with Palpatine. The Sith Lord's eyes gleamed with malicious anticipation, and his voice slithered into Anakin's mind. "Join me, Anakin. You know it is your destiny. Together, we can save Padme." But Anakin's resolve held firm. "No. This ends here, Sidious. I won't fall to the dark side." The room was a whirlwind of combat and clashing wills, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. As the battle raged on, each side fought with everything they had, knowing that the future itself depended on the outcome of this final confrontation. The battle in Palpatine's office intensified with each passing moment, the clash of lightsabers and the roar of blaster fire echoing through the vast chamber. It was a fight unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, heroes from the past, present, and future fighting side by side against some of the deadliest enemies ever assembled. Street Rat ducked under a vicious strike from General Grievous, narrowly avoiding one of the four spinning lightsabers. He countered with a burst of gunfire, his magnum glowing with multiversal energy, the enhanced bullets ricocheting off Grievous' mechanical armor but leaving dents. The Orphan leapt onto Grievous' back, trying to slice into his joints with a vibroblade, while Fallout Boy provided cover, blasting droids and commando clones from across the room. Meanwhile, Darth Vader moved through the battlefield like a force of nature, his red lightsaber cutting down droids and clones with lethal precision. His movements were methodical, almost calm, but there was no mistaking the power behind each strike. At one point, Vader's path intersected with Anakin's as they both faced off against Sidious. "Anakin, we must strike together," Vader said, his voice still mechanical but filled with a sense of urgency. This was not the dark, cold Sith Lord they had feared. This was a man who had seen the future and knew what was at stake. Anakin, still grappling with the weight of everything happening around him, nodded. "For Padme. For the galaxy." The two Skywalkers, present and future, turned their attention to Sidious, who stood in the center of the chaos with a cold smile. Lightning crackled from Sidious's fingertips as he unleashed a storm of dark side energy, forcing the two of them back, but their combined strength in the Force began to push back against the Sith Lord. Sidious's grin faltered. "You cannot defeat me. I have foreseen this. You will fall." At that moment, Luke Skywalker joined his father and Anakin, igniting his green lightsaber and charging forward. The three Skywalkers past, present, and future united their strength, pushing Sidious onto the defensive. Meanwhile, across the room, Obi-Wan and Old Ben were locked in a deadly duel with Darth Maul and Asajj Ventress. Maul's rage fueled his every strike, his double-blade lightsaber spinning like a deadly whirlwind. Obi-Wan deflected a vicious attack from Maul, his blue blade flashing with precision. Old Ben, though older and slower, matched Ventress' agility with his experience, forcing her back with careful, controlled strikes. Ventress growled in frustration, her red lightsabers clashing with Old Ben's blade. "You think your age will save you, old man?" Old Ben only smiled. "I've learned a few things over the years." With a well-timed maneuver, Old Ben disarmed Ventress, sending one of her lightsabers flying across the room. She hissed in frustration, retreating momentarily as Obi-Wan pressed the attack on Maul. The two Jedi worked together, their movements in perfect harmony as they forced Maul and Ventress into a corner. Plo Koon and Kit Fisto, fighting side by side, tore through the ranks of droids and commando clones, their lightsabers blurring in the chaos. Plo's calm precision and Kit's relentless energy made them an unstoppable duo, their blades deflecting blaster fire and cutting down enemies with practiced ease. The two Jedi quickly overwhelmed the commandos, leaving only a small group of droids standing in their way. And then there was Yoda, both present and future fighting together as one. The two Yodas leapt and spun through the air, their green blades whirling in perfect sync as they took on the false storyteller and the imposter. The false storyteller's reality-warping abilities made the fight unpredictable, warping the very fabric of the room, but the Yoda's connection to the Force allowed them to navigate through the distortions. The imposter, his mechanical body a hulking mass of twisted metal, fought with brutal efficiency, his strikes heavy and relentless. but the Vandukes weren't about to back down. Street Rat, Fallout Boy, and the Orphan coordinated their attacks, striking at the imposter's joints and weak points, slowly wearing him down. Street Rat's multiversal enhanced magnum blasted apart one of the imposter's arms, while Fallout Boy's well-aimed shot took out part of his mechanical leg. In the midst of the chaos, the false storyteller attempted to manipulate reality again, trying to undo the damage to the imposter and shift the battlefield in their favor. But as he concentrated, the Orphan launched himself at the false storyteller, driving a dagger into his side, disrupting his focus and stopping the reality warping. "You won't rewrite this one," the Orphan growled, forcing the false storyteller back. As the battle reached its peak, the combined forces of the Vandukes, the Jedi, and their allies from the future began to overwhelm Sidious and his dark forces. Sidious, realizing his plans were unraveling, unleashed one final, desperate surge of dark side energy, attempting to break through the united front of the Skywalkers. But this time, it wasn't enough. Vader, Luke, and Anakin pushed forward with the Force, their combined power slamming into Sidious with the strength of 3 generations of Skywalkers. Sidious screamed in rage as he was blasted back, his dark energy collapsing around him. Across the room, the imposter's body collapsed as the Vandukes delivered the final blow, while the false storyteller staggered, unable to continue warping reality under the relentless assault from the Jedi and Vandukes. The battle was nearing its end, but the galaxy still hung in the balance. Would this victory be enough to finally topple Sidious and his allies? Or was there still more left to fight for? As the dust settled, the final moments of the battle loomed ahead. In the midst of the chaos, as the battle raged on, Palpatine Darth Sidious rose to his feet, his face twisted into a mask of pure malevolence. His yellow eyes glowed with unnatural fury, and the air around him crackled with dark energy, charged with the full weight of the dark side of the Force. With a scream of hatred, Sidious unleashed a devastating surge of power, a torrent of dark energy that erupted from his body like a storm, expanding outward and striking everyone in the room. The Jedi, the Vandukes, even the figures from the future, all were thrown back, slamming into the walls and the floor as the Sith Lord's power tore through them. It was as though the very fabric of reality had begun to crack under the weight of his might. The room darkened, the shadows deepening, as Sidious, his voice rising in a maniacal cackle, intensified his assault. His hands crackled with Sith lightning, the blue and purple tendrils arcing toward the fallen Jedi and Vandukes, pushing them to the brink of collapse. The false storyteller, weakened but still standing, joined in, trying to warp reality itself to amplify Sidious' power, the walls and floor twisting under the strain of the combined dark forces. Vader, Anakin, and Luke struggled to rise, the force of Sidious' attack keeping them pinned down. Luke, his face contorted with pain, reached out to his father, both of his fathers, knowing that if they didn't stop Sidious now, everything would be lost. "We have to," he gasped, his words lost in the din of Sidious' malevolent laughter. Sidious's voice echoed through the room, a terrifying chorus of triumph. You thought you could stop me? You thought you could rewrite the future? Foolish Jedi. The dark side will consume all, and I will be its master. This galaxy, this reality, will be mine. The room trembled, the power of Sidious's onslaught forcing even the strongest to their knees. The Vandukes, despite their multiversal strength, could feel the crushing weight of the dark side closing in around them. Street Rat, clutching his magnum, tried to focus, but Sidious's power was suffocating. Fallout Boy and the Orphan struggled as well, their weapons ineffective against this raw, overwhelming force. Just as it seemed that all hope was lost, the doors to the chamber were blasted open, and a lone figure charged into the fray. Count Dooku. His once regal face was hardened with resolve, his crimson lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss as he charged toward Sidious. Sidious turned, his eyes narrowing in surprise. Dooku. What is this? Without hesitation, Dooku leapt forward, his lightsaber cutting through the tendrils of dark lightning aimed at the Jedi and the Vandukes. I have served you long enough, Sidious, Dooku said, his voice cold and determined. But today, I end this madness. With a strength born from years of mastery, Dooku pushed Sidious back, his blade flashing with precision as he cut through the dark energy, shielding the others as they slowly regained their footing. Sidious snarled in rage, his lightning intensifying, but Dooku pressed on, his attacks relentless, sacrificing himself to buy the others precious moments to recover. Vader, Luke, and Anakin saw their chance. With Dooku creating an opening, they gathered their strength. Luke ignited his green lightsaber once again, his grip tightening as he prepared for the final assault. Vader, with a glance toward his son, nodded grimly, and Anakin, his younger self, stood ready beside them. Dooku's body faltered under the sheer pressure of Sidious' power, his strength waning. As Sidious unleashed one final, devastating blast of lightning, Dooku roared in defiance, taking the full brunt of the attack, his body convulsing with pain but holding firm just long enough. Now! Luke shouted. In perfect unison, Vader, Anakin, and Luke surged forward, their lightsabers cutting through the storm of energy as they charged Sidious together. The Sith Lord, distracted and weakened by Dooku's sacrifice, barely had time to react. The three Skywalkers struck as one, their blades finding purchase. Sidious screamed in fury, his body convulsing as the combined power of the Skywalkers overwhelmed him. With a final, desperate scream, Darth Sidious was consumed by the light of the Force. His body collapsed in on itself, the dark energy dissipating into nothingness. The Sith Lord, the mastermind of the Clone Wars and the architect of the galaxy's destruction, was finally dead. As the room fell silent, the remnants of Sidious' power fading into the ether, the Vandukes, Jedi, and their future allies stood in a moment of stunned relief. The threat of Sidious had ended, but the cost was great. Dooku lay on the floor, his body broken, his life slipping away. Street Rat, Old Ben, both Yodas, and the others rushed to his side. They tried to heal him, but the damage was too severe. Dooku's once proud features softened as he looked up at them, a flicker of peace in his eyes. "I was a fool," Dooku whispered, his voice weak but filled with regret. "But in the end, I see the truth." Obi-Wan knelt beside him, his hand resting gently on Dooku's shoulder. "You came back to the light, Dooku. You are a Jedi once more." Dooku's lips curled into a faint smile, his final breath leaving his body. "A Jedi, at last." With that, Count Dooku, former Sith Lord, passed away, redeemed in his final moments. The room fell into a solemn silence as the Jedi and Vandukes mourned the loss of one who had found his way back to the light. Dooku had died not as a Sith, but as a hero, sacrificing himself to save the galaxy and allowing the Skywalkers to deliver the final blow to Darth Sidious. In the end, Dooku had returned to what he was always meant to be, a Jedi. In the aftermath of the climactic battle, the galaxy began to heal. The Jedi and Vandukes gathered to honor Count Dooku's memory, giving him a traditional Jedi burial. The solemn ceremony was held in a peaceful glade outside the Jedi Temple, where the trees whispered in the wind, and the stars above seemed to shine just a bit brighter. Dooku, once lost to the dark side, was laid to rest as a hero and a Jedi, his sacrifice remembered as a key moment that helped save the galaxy. With Sidious defeated and the threat of the Sith extinguished, the focus shifted toward rebuilding. The first order of business was saving the clone troopers. Using advanced technology and the combined knowledge of the Jedi and Vandukes, they halted the clones' accelerated aging, giving them a chance to live normal lives beyond war. The inhibitor chips, which had once bound them to Sidious will, were removed, freeing the clones from any lingering control. Commander Cody, Rex, and many other clone commanders were among the first to undergo the procedure. For the first time, they could live as individuals, not as tools of war. The clone army, now freed from their dark programming, was disbanded, with many clones choosing to live peaceful lives or become peacekeepers across the galaxy. But it wasn't just the clones who were saved. The battle droids, once programmed to wage war, were given a second chance as well. Reprogrammed and fitted with more advanced parts, the droids were redesigned to assist in peacekeeping, construction, and aiding people throughout the galaxy. They no longer served as instruments of destruction but as protectors and helpers. Some of the most advanced droids, like the commando units, were given the ability to think more freely, allowing them to become part of the rebuilding effort in a galaxy once torn apart by conflict. The Jedi, now working alongside their new allies from the future, the Vandukes, and the reformed droid and clone forces, began a new chapter for the galaxy. Peace was no longer just a hope, it was becoming a reality. The old systems of power were dismantled, and the Republic was rebuilt with a new emphasis on justice, freedom, and the balance of the Force. It was a time of renewal, and for the first time in a long while, the galaxy felt hopeful.